Heads of state, environmental experts, representatives of big oil and gas companies, climate activists and journalists have converged on the Red Sea town of Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, to discuss the global climate crisis. Leaders of some of the world's largest polluters are slated to speak, as are those from countries that are bearing the brunt of the effects of climate change. St. Lucia is represented by a high-level delegation from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and a special envoy from the Department of Sustainable Development, headed by Minister Sean Edwards. St. Lucia has been a leader amongst vulnerable Caribbean states in prioritizing a response to climate change, both nationally and in international fora. Its nationally determined contribution submission to the Paris Agreement outlines a balanced mitigation strategy backed by costed investment plans and a qualitative adaptation strategy with identified priority sectors. To facilitate climate adaptation planning and to enable the integration of climate change adaptation considerations into all relevant policies and programs, St. Lucia has developed a long-term National Adaptation Plan running from 2018 to 2028. The key next step is to build on this by updating strategic plans and legislation to fully align the country's development framework with its resilience building goals. Ruana Haynes of Climate Analytics is a specialist in international climate law and governance. She leads the climate diplomacy team, which supports the chair of the Alliance of Small Island States and is playing a key role in drafting model climate change legislation in St. Lucia. We met up with Ruana at COP27.
St. Lucia is one of, I think, 3 or 4 pilot countries that we're working with in developing the model climate change legislation. When we went to them, they were already in the process of developing a draft. We helped them to improve that draft and finalize that draft, to the point where they can now consult it nationally and make it really and truly their own. It was a very long exercise involving a lot of consultation, not just with the ministry that has responsibility for climate change, but also with the Attorney General's office, because they are the drafters. But we have learned a lot of key lessons in terms of some of the innovative aspects that we can actually include in a model coming out of that process. And you heard in the presentations Carlin and Mali talking about how to include loss and damage, for example, in the context of local national legislation.
St. Lucia is continuously working on strengthening and updating its climate change legislation and policy. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, and the Sustainable Development and Environment Department has been spearheading the revision and creation of climate-related legislation. NEMO has proposed amendments to the Disaster Management Act of 2006, while the Sustainable Development and Environment Department has been working on a climate change bill and an environmental management bill. These respective pieces of legislation will strengthen the nexus between disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation.
CARICOM has, for example, provided various models, and I think the OECS as well provides various types of model legislation for countries. What it does is it accelerates the process of getting countries to be able to do this work, because we are all capacity constrained. So it's really just capacity building and technical assistance.
The anticipated amendments and improvements to the legal and institutional framework for disaster risk management and climate change adaptation stand to benefit vulnerable groups such as indigenous people, persons with disabilities, and migrants. St. Lucia's strides towards robust climate change legislation is well in line with COP27's theme, Together for Implementation.